Think Outside the Lines is a space for anyone ready to stop checking boxes, to step off autopilot, and create the life you actually want, with clarity, intention, and alignment. Whether you're questioning the default path, rebuilding from scratch, or just looking to feel a little more like yourself. When was the last time you made a decision without checking with someone first? Not a small decision, like what to eat for lunch. A real one. A life decision, something that mattered. If you're like most people, you can't remember, because somewhere along the way, you stopped trusting yourself to know. And you started outsourcing, to friends, to parents, to mentors, to the internet, to anyone who seemed more certain than you felt. You started running every big decision through a committee of other people's opinions before you'd let yourself choose. And it probably felt smart. It felt responsible, like you were gathering information, being careful, being thorough. But here's what was actually happening. Every time you asked someone else before asking yourself, you were sending a quiet message to your own brain. A message that said, I don't trust you to get this right. And over time, that message becomes a belief. Not a conscious one, not something you'd ever say out loud, but a belief that runs underneath everything. Other people know better than I do. I can't trust my own judgment. I need external confirmation before I'm allowed to move. That's how self-trust erodes, not all at once. Not through one dramatic failure, but slowly, quietly, decision by decision, until you realize you've built a life based almost entirely on other people's input. And the thing is, the input was probably good. The people you asked probably gave you solid, reasonable, well-intentioned advice. That's not the problem. The problem is that their clarity is not the same as your clarity. And the more you rely on someone else's compass, the harder it gets to hear your own. So how did you get here? Think about growing up. Think about how decisions were made for you before you had a say. What to study, what to value, what kind of life was smart to pursue. And then, as you got older, the decisions became yours on paper, but the conditioning stayed. You still looked for external validation before you let yourself choose. And it gets reinforced at work too. Most of us spent years inside systems that trained us to seek approval before acting, run it up the chain, get buy-in, wait for the green light. That's not decision-making, that's managing. It's running every thought through someone else's filter before you're willing to own it. But there's another way to move through the world. Instead of managing yourself, constantly evaluating, constantly checking, constantly running the performance review on your own instincts. What if you led yourself? What if you met your own uncertainty the way a great leader would? Not by demanding that you already have the answer, but by trusting that you're capable of finding it. Not by critiquing your every impulse, but by being curious about what your impulses are telling you. Leading yourself looks like letting a decision stand without immediately second-guessing it. It looks like sitting with a choice long enough to notice how your body responds to it, rather than overriding that response with logic. It looks like being generous with yourself instead of relentless. And I know that sounds simple, but it's radical if you've spent years doing the opposite. So how do you rebuild it? How do you rebuild trust with yourself after years of outsourcing? The same way you'd rebuild trust with anyone else, through small kept promises. You start small. Not with the career pivot or the move or the big scary thing, with something minor, something that only matters to you. You say you're going to wake up early and you do it. You say you're going to take a walk and you take it. You say you're going to write for 20 minutes and you sit down and write. Not because any of these things are life-changing on their own, but because every time you say you'll do something and you follow through, you're rebuilding the relationship with yourself. You're proving, one small act at a time, that your word to yourself means something. And then, gradually, the bigger decisions start to feel different. Not easy, not certain, but possible. Because you've spent weeks or months showing yourself that you can follow your own lead, that your instincts are worth listening to, that you don't need someone else's permission to trust yourself. Here's what I want you to hear. You already know more than you think. The clarity you've been looking for outside of yourself, it's not out there. It's underneath all the noise you've been collecting from other people. It's been there the whole time, waiting for you to stop drowning it out. You don't need more advice. You don't need more opinions. You don't need someone else to tell you what you already feel. You just need to start listening. So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. What would it take to trust yourself again? Thanks for spending some time with me today. Choosing to step off autopilot and think differently about your life takes work, and I don't take it lightly that you're here. If today's episode resonated, the best way to support the show is to share it with someone who might need to hear it. And whenever you're ready to go deeper, whether through free worksheets, guided audio reflections, or one-on-one coaching, you can find everything over at thinkoutsideTheLines.com. Be well, and I'll catch you next time.